Welcome to another episode of One on One. I'm your host, Justin Gick, and today I'm talking to Cali Montana, a multimedia journalist at KOTA Territory News in Rapid City, South Dakota. Cali graduated from LaSalle University's Communication Department in 2019 and was very involved in LaSalle TV and was a producer, anchor, and reporter for LaSalle TV News. Cali, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So let's kind of just jump right into it. Give our viewers a brief description of what you do in your job and how you got here.
Like you said, I'm a multimedia journalist in Rapid City, South Dakota. So basically, you kind of do it all. We pitch the stories, we go out and shoot them, conduct the interviews, come back, put it all together, edit it, write the script, voice it, obviously, put your CGs in for the show, put it on the web, all of that fun stuff. So, that's kind of the job that I do. And the way I got here, I have to thank LaSalle, the communication department, for everything they did. I mean, I was very involved with LaSalle TV, so that really helped me get some internships that I had that I think helped me even more to land the job that I have now.
This is your first job. Obviously, it's far from Philadelphia and less populated. Has it been difficult for you to adjust and also learn about the area you're covering?
First, it was a little tricky because I never even visited here before I even came. I literally, my parents helped me move here, and that was the first time I stepped foot in South Dakota. So it was definitely, for me, a culture shock, and it took some time to adjust. But for me, I at least did my research beforehand, too, to help out. So I kind of had a better mindset of when I got here. But at first, it definitely was a bit of a challenge figuring out what problems do they have here, because they're very different from what they are in Philadelphia. Agriculture is huge here. So that's a lot of stories we do cover. So it's also learning to adapt to a different world, get into the community early and understand what is going on. So it takes a lot, but it is worth it. And I'm very happy with, coming here.
How do you find story ideas? Do you have to pitch ideas all the time, or do you usually get assigned a story that you're going to cover?
So usually every morning, at least, here you have a morning meeting and you always want to come in with a few ideas. So you sit in the meeting with some of your coworkers, the executive producer, assignment editor, and our news director, and we all pitch ideas. A lot of times you are doing stories that you did pitch. Other times it's some stories that they think might be better for this day. For me, when it comes to finding stories and then pitching it, always look on social media. That's always huge. People love social media, love to get things going out. So you never know what you could find. But also what's crucial is making those connections in the community, because there are times that I don't know something, but I did a story with someone and we were able to grow that connection, and they'll shoot me a text being like, hey, not sure if this is a story, but this is what's happening. And then it's like, oh my gosh, that's an amazing story. And sometimes it's a story that the other station won't even have. So between, for me, looking on social media, constantly staying in touch with people, that helps me get my stories.
So take me through your typical day. Obviously, with the news changing day to day, you don't usually have one.
Yeah. So before the pandemic, usually what we would do is I'm a dayside reporter. So we would come in, have our morning meeting. We would all sit, pitch some stories. And then, you kind of go make your calls. If breaking news happens, you get sent out, things like that. But yeah, you pitch your stories. They say whether it's a go or not. And then you go out, make those connections to try and set that all up. And then you just go out and shoot. You go out and get what you need. You come back, you got to edit it all. You got to write your script. You got to get that approved. And then you go and voice it. And then it's time to, put together your other story and then post to the web. I know for me, we're technically responsible for basically 3 stories a day. So that's a package, a cut down of that package, and then a completely different story, which is a faux side. So no, you're constantly on the go, you're constantly trying to do stuff. And then sometimes we're responsible for live shots, which majority of the time we are doing them by ourselves. We don't have a photog with us most of the time. So that's a typical day, typical, however you want to say it. And then because of the pandemic now, we're trying to not be as much in the newsroom. So right now we are calling in to our assignment editor and pitching stories that way, and then kind of leaving from home to go out and shoot our interviews or doing it through Zoom. So at this point, it's just about being very creative, especially with the pandemic. So that's kind of like a typical day, but you never know what could happen. Sometimes all of that gets messed up and you're just like, what next? And you just pick up the pieces and keep on going.
So what skills do you think are important for those who want to go into this field?
I would say you want to be able to do everything and anything that you can. You know, you want to obviously be able to be a good writer, a good communicator, but in this type of industry, especially now, if you only want to be a reporter, make sure you know how to do everything else, because odds are you're just not going to be a reporter. Or if you want to be a producer, you know, it's not a bad idea to kind of see what reporters do. It's good to have a knowledge of everything. If you even want to do PR, it's important to know what it's like for a reporter, and for a reporter to know what it's like for a PR person. You know, the bottom line is we work with a lot of these people, and having a good understanding of what they have to do and what we have to do, I think it makes everyone's life a lot easier. So, you know, always just be open-minded, have those writing skills, be a good communicator, always be willing to ask questions. I think that is huge. If you don't know something, ask. You're better off asking than making a huge mistake. I would have more respect if, you know, I honestly don't know what to do. And, you know, just editing. Editing is a huge skill to have. Make sure you clean up those skills. And they're easy things that you can do. You don't have to even be in school right now to spruce up those skills a little bit. I know sometimes it could be pricey to get an editing system, but sometimes it's worth that investment. You could do a lot of things off your phone, just practicing shooting. You know, our phones they're pretty amazing right now, and they can catch some pretty awesome things. So, you know, just working on your shooting, your editing, your writing, just being able to do everything is honestly key.
What are employers at news stations looking for in your resume? And, you know, when they're reviewing your application, what was your interview like?
So I personally think news directors, they're looking for that experience, you know, through internships, getting very involved with your college's TV station, like we have with LaSalle TV. So I think those are huge. You know, for me, having some internships, I was also a junior reporter with Fox 29. So that was huge too. I know that definitely stood out on my resume. So, you know, always having extra experience, even if it's not necessarily in that field, or I should say, you know, like major. Let's say you had a PR internship, but you really want to do, you know, reporting. That's not a bad thing to have on there either. It shows diversity. So never feel afraid to like step out of that comfort zone. For me, my interview process, you know, I had a few and they were all over the phone. So they were all different. Some were through FaceTime, you know, just because of the distance and everything. And some of the questions I were asked, basically, you know, it's always tell me about yourself, your experience. You know, some of the questions I were even asked, some were pitch me a story right now. How would you pitch me a story in our morning meeting? Some asked questions just about the area. So you always, you know, if you are applying and you're getting ready for some interviews, always do your research. You know, I can't say what all news directors are going to ask, but do that research, learn more about the station, and make sure you have questions to ask them. You know, that's always a good thing. They're always going to ask, do you have any questions for me? And I always did. So that's always, you know, a good thing. And a question could be, you know, what are some ways I'll be able to grow when I do come here? Because you're showing you want to grow for the station, but you also want to grow for yourself. So that's always, a good question that I always ask. So, every interview is going to be different, but the best thing that you could do is your research. And it's actually funny, I did a story on this like about a month ago for college grads and kind of that job searching thing and how it's changed so much. And someone who I was talking to was, tell them to get ready to do a lot of Zoom and Skype interviews. So especially because of the pandemic. So, if anyone is going through that now, not a bad idea. Maybe grab a friend, do a mock interview trial over Zoom and just get ready for something like that.
Obviously with, applications, you usually submit a reel of your work that you've done. Can you kind of tell us what a reel is and like, what do you usually put in it? I know like it's a mixture of stand-ups and some of like your best packages. Do you also include stuff from like your college work or mostly like your internships?
Reel is crucial, whether you want to go into producing, reporting, stuff like that. A reel showcases your talent and what you can do. So usually, at least for me, when I started to apply for jobs, the first minute was a montage of stand-ups. So most of them were stand-ups that I filmed while with LaSalle TV just to show that this was my work and this is what I'm capable of. And I also mixed in some of my introing of packages when I was with Fox 29 as a junior reporter, just to show I have that live experience too. And then the rest of it, I picked 3 of my best packages from LaSalle TV. So you definitely want to have packages in there. You don't want to just, send in your finished demo reel with just stand-ups. Because news directors need to see, can you tell a story? Do you know how to, set up a shot? Do you know things to capture?
So, do you feel like your coursework at LaSalle prepared you for this field, or do you feel like it wasn't until you got into the field that you really got that full-on experience?
I feel like I was prepared, but I don't think nothing can ever really get you fully prepared until you're actually, in there doing it. I obviously knew what to expect, from some coursework and from internships. But until you're actually in there getting your feet dirty and actually doing the work, then you're like, oh my God, this is real. Then you start to get into the groove of things. So look, I don't think you'll ever be fully prepared, but I think LaSalle gave me a good backbone for it that really helped me get to where I am and doing what I'm doing now.
So going on again, with the internships, obviously with the pandemic, a lot of internships were canceled this summer and even this fall. What would you suggest for, juniors and seniors that want to do internships, but might not be able to with the pandemic going on this fall?
Well, that's a great question because I think this is the perfect time for them to get out into the field right now. It's something so easy that they could cover that everyone is talking about. And like I said, you don't need that camera equipment. You have your phone. You can, order some little things off Amazon that you may need, and you can get right into the field and, put together a little demo reel all by yourself, put together little packages. So that's one thing that, if you need some stuff for your demo reel or you're just trying to keep up on your skills, here's the perfect time.
How does KOTA differ from your experience at your internships?
Well, it differs a lot. Number one, being in Philadelphia, I interned in Philadelphia and New York City. So those are 2 big major markets. They're in the top 5. And then, I'm here in a smaller market. So obviously the news station is a lot smaller. So, you do a lot on your own. It's a lot of teamwork. But also, when you're in a big city, a lot of things happen. Breaking news is very common in the big cities. Here, it doesn't happen as often. So you really have to learn to enterprise stories and figure stuff out like that and be really creative, because it might sound like a silly story back at home to you guys, but here it could mean a whole lot to them. So, when you go from a big market interning and seeing all this to a smaller market, you just really learn how to do everything, which is huge because that's what employers want to see.
So my final question is, where do you think you see yourself in 5 years?
Okay, so that's a tricky one, but for sure, I know I want to stay with local news. I love being a local news reporter. No matter how big or small, the place you are, there's always a story. There's always something happening that people need to know. It's happening right in their backyard, and they deserve to know, and they deserve to find answers. So I just love being able to do that. I would love to be closer to home, maybe in driving distance. But for me, as long as I'm closer to home and being a local news reporter, I'll be happy.
But Callie, thank you so much for your time today and explaining your work in the news field.
Yeah.
And I wish you continued success in the field, and hopefully we will see you back in our viewing area very soon. Until next time, I'm Justin Gick for One on One.